everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What's that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that's how it works on the Republican side.
Younger Republicans are finally starting to listen to what Republican Congressman Thomas Massie has been saying about Israel and AIPAC. And now they're admitting that AIPAC and Israel are not the angels that they thought that they were. So the most recent example of this that we're seeing is pro-Trump MMA fighter Sean Strickland, who posted to X yesterday. He said, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but I will vote for a Democrat over an AIPAC Republican candidate. 4 years of a Democrat sounds easier than a politician owned by a foreign government. Ted Cruz really was a sobering reminder of how owned our politicians are." So Strickland had more to say about this, but what's your initial reaction to this?
I love it, and not because he's saying like, "Oh, I'm just going to switch over to Democrats." I got bad news from there. The Democrats have AIPAC handlers too, but I love it because it's part of the Great Awakening. I think the whole country, you can say especially the right wing, in both a good way and a bad way, but I would say it in a good way, is waking up to the reality of how corrupt all of our politicians are. And what I mean by that good thing, bad thing is, like, it's a good thing that the right wing is waking up to that. I wish our side would wake up to that more, right? Like, let's all be honest. They 400 out of the 435 members of Congress take money from AIPAC. By the way, they also all take money from big pharma, big oil. It's a story we're gonna do later. These guys are all crooks. They all work for their donors. So I'm glad that there's an awakening on the right wing. I hope almost all of us that were real progressive populists already knew this. But there's a lot of establishment Democratic voters even that still don't know it. They still think Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Buttigieg and Newsom are amazing and wonderful and angels, and they would never work for AIPAC. No, I got bad news for you. They all work for AIPAC. All right,
yeah.
Yes, more details on this.
Well, yeah, that's true. We do have a lot of corruption in today's episode, so that's something to look forward to. Well, as we mentioned, Strickland was a huge supporter of Donald Trump's over the past few years, but recently he has been very critical of not only his handling of the Epstein files, but also the US's involvement in bombing Iran and our involvement with Israel and Gaza. He said, "Man, if Trump keeps this BS up, I'm about to start waving a Palestinian flag. American cities are S-holes and you wanna go spend billions on this dumpster fire. Did we make a mistake? This ain't America first." All right, so he recently, he continued to make his disdain for Israel and AIPAC known, as we saw with the post that we mentioned earlier, also adding in response to someone stating that it's not just Republicans that fold to AIPAC. He responded, "That is a line in the sand for me." So the message is starting to become very loud and clear. And even Steve Bannon is sounding the alarm to the rest of MAGA. He responded to Strickland's original tweet saying, "Younger generations are telling MAGA, heed this warning." And he's very astute to recognize that and to point out that this is going to be a problem potentially going forward. And it is something that Trump is aware of. He reportedly warned one prominent Jewish donor, according to a Middle East expert who speaks regularly with the administration, that, quote, "My people are starting to hate Israel." But the Israeli government's defenders will not go down without a fight. As we mentioned earlier, Representative Thomas Massie has been a strong opponent of AIPAC and very vocal. He's become a vocal critic of also Trump's war powers and the Epstein files. And people are trying to take him down in next year's primary because of how vocal he is being. A super PAC known as MAGA Kentucky has raised almost $2 million between its launch in late June and the end of the month. And guess who donated to that PAC? We have $1 million from GOP mega donor Paul Singer, $250,000 from hedge fund manager John Paulson, $750,000 from Preserve America PAC, a super PAC tied to Marian Adelson's that backed President Trump last year. So I'll start with you, Jackson, and get your thoughts on this before we go to Cenk. But do you think that this could be the beginning of what Cenk was referring to, like a great awakening of sorts? I know that the great awakening is something that has been discussed a lot, especially on the right. Whenever they were talking about it, I didn't think that this is what they meant, but here we are, and I'm not mad about it. I am happy that more people are waking up to this. What was interesting to me about Strickland's criticism is that giving so much money to Israel was not America first. It felt very much so Israel first. So he wasn't necessarily upset about the Palestinians and the plight of the Palestinians and what he's seeing going on in Gaza. But he's saying we have things at home, fix that first. Is that distinction significant, or is it as long as we get to the end result, is that all we're after?
Well, I think, as I've lived my life, I've realized that a lot of things just aren't 100% ideal all the time. You got to take the W's when you can. So whether it's AIPAC or big oil or big pharma, we can easily sit here and point out all the other corruption, but I think it's good that people like Sean Strickland or anybody else who's in a position of influence, particularly if they're more on the right, to point this type of stuff out. For one, it could be, have some type of a domino effect that could go at least far enough to where more of us can meet each other halfway. And I think that's really important in the political climate that we live in right now, because there's so much partisan divide, especially at the federal government. And, with the Senate rules about how many people have to vote for anything to pass, hardly anything ever gets passed. So if we can get more people on board with being against corruption, and as we point out here all the time, that's really the crux of the issues that we have in our political system here in America. So out of all the issues, corruption is definitely the biggest one. So, this could lead people to look more into Trump's corruption because he's the king of corruption. And, the saying like America first, that sold really strongly for a lot of people. They may not have thought very deeply about it, but it sounds good. It sounds like we're going to bring manufacturing back here. We're going to look out for our own. And as that does not happen more and more, I think above anything else, corruption is definitely the most important issue. And maybe it can lessen AIPAC's control over the federal process here in the United States.
Yeah, definitely a step in the right direction.
What's really funny is that mainstream media says, what do you mean AIPAC's control over Congress? Right. Come on, you guys are journalists. Okay, the #1 donors to congressional members in this election cycle. But all the journalists in mainstream media say, oh, no, nothing to see here. No, in fact, if you say it, that means you hate all Jews. What? How about, does that mean we hate all people that work in drug companies? Because we've been pointing out the big pharma's corruption for decades here, right? No, it's absurd. So let's break it down one by one. First of all, are the Democrats a little bit better on this issue? A little bit, yes. So if you say, well, what do you mean Joe Biden gave them everything, gave Israel and AIPAC everything they wanted? Absolutely right. So did every Democratic president. Pretty much right, except Obama did the Iran deal, which they didn't want, right? But so, okay, maybe, and Biden didn't greenlight the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. He only paid $20 billion. I mean, these are not things to stand on, right? So if you just look at that, you go, no, it's kind of pretty much similar with a little bit of exception, but at least the Democrats have the progressives. So if you're on the right and I don't like progressive economic policy, blah, 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 that's not the topic here, right? We'll have that fight another day. But have progressives in Congress been really good on this issue? Yes. And by the way, so is Thomas Massie and now Marjorie Taylor Greene. People who, and Massie and doesn't take AIPAC money. People who don't take AIPAC money are more honest when it comes to this issue, and that's inarguable. So if you say, oh, you're biased in favor of progressives, no, Justice Democrats don't take any corporate PAC money and they don't take AIPAC money, and that's why they're more honest about this. And we're gonna tell you a little bit later in the show about how 9 progressives are now challenging Israel's core ideology and what should be done with the Palestinians. So that's awesome. So there's some really good, and Bernie Sanders has always been usually, not almost, but usually the first in Congress to challenge what Israel is doing wrong. So yes, the Democrats are a little better on this issue. The progressives are way better on this issue. So that's just reality. Okay, now when it comes to the core of the Israeli-Palestinian issue, when Sean Strickland says, that'll make me carry a Palestinian flag, I'm seeing that a lot more lately, and that is just shocking. I never happened in my life before, and I think Trump is absolutely right when he told that person that his people are starting to hate Israel now. And what that's leading to is the remarkable thing I've never seen, where a lot of right-wingers are rallying to Palestinian cause and are now beginning to say, wait a minute, were we just taught to hate Muslims because Israel was fighting them and conquering more and more of their land, so they wanted us to hate the Muslims so that we, go to war for them in Iraq and other places, and we'd keep funding them, slaughtering and occupying Muslims and Palestinians and Arabs? That is an awakening I'm not sure I would have seen in my lifetime. The right wing saying that, and now they're saying it everywhere. And Tucker Carlson has been critical in that. Honestly, Candace Owens has been critical in that. Again, you could disagree with her on everything else, and Tucker on so many things, but they've been huge there. And lastly here, so mainstream media says it's anti-Semitic to talk about any of this. Okay, so is every government allowed to bribe American politicians legally? So if Venezuela decided, hey, you know what, we're basically almost dictatorial at this point, so let's just take a bunch of money from the Venezuelan people and bribe American politicians, and then they'll give us billions and billions of dollars. It's probably a good strategy. So would it be anti-Venezuelan to point that out? Would it be anti-Latino to point that out? No, it's a foreign government. Of course it's not against the people of that government. The Russians invaded Ukraine. Doesn't mean I hate the Russian people. Leadership did that, right? I'm gonna blame all Russians? I'm blaming Putin. In this case, we're blaming Netanyahu, we're blaming AIPAC, who's clearly corrupting these guys. And so it's not just AIPAC. Look at all those donors that Yaz read you that are now saying, Thomas Massie will be eliminated, okay? So don't tell me it's anti-Semitic when a bunch of guys, is it all Jews, guys? That's nuts. They don't call all Jews and go, oh, okay, guys, you want to chip in against Thomas Massie? That doesn't happen. The overwhelming majority of Jews have nothing to do with it. But are there some Israeli supporters that are well-to-do, like Paul Singer and Miriam Adelson? And I know John Paulson, for whatever reason, I don't know, it doesn't matter what their religion is. What matters is what they do. And are they trying to eliminate Tom Massie because he's speaking out against Israel? Definitely. If anyone else tells you otherwise, including all the mainstream media, they are actively lying to you. There's no question. Miriam Adelson is a joint American and Israeli citizen, and that's okay too. But is she donating based on Israel? Yes, she says it all the time. And there was a story out in the Israeli press about how she gave so much money to Donald Trump. Her family's given over $300 million to Trump. Why? Because she's like, I want America to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. She's just saying it. I want Israel to control foreign policy in America. That's a fact, okay? And if you hide behind Jewish Americans to excuse the atrocities of Israel's genocide and the atrocities of these donors just flat out buying our politicians and trying to eliminate any politician, any representative, Republican or Democrat, who would dare oppose Israel, well, you're a liar if you say that's not happening, because it is 100% verifiable fact. And there's some weird Israeli protection racket in our media. I know why the politicians do it. They literally get legally bribed to do it. They take hundreds of millions of dollars to serve Israel and not America. That's a fact. So don't tell me, oh, I don't like that fact. It hurts my feelings, okay? Obviously AIPAC controls Congress. Obviously they've controlled both Biden and Trump. So, and here they are saying, we're gonna eliminate Tom Massie like we eliminated Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush and Marie Newman, and by the way, Andy Levin in Michigan, because they dared to oppose extreme, I don't even want to call it right-wing, terrorist government of Israel. If you oppose a terrorist in Israel like Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, you are not allowed to be an American politician because the Friends of Israel will eliminate you. Well, I can't stand that. I can't stand it when any lobby does it. It's mainly corporate lobbies, but in this case, it's a foreign government. And it's loathsome. And Sean Strickland is 100% right about this. We can disagree on everything else, but the core issue isn't about Israel. The core issue is, Are our representatives going to represent us, or are they just doing an open auction for the highest bidder? And these prostitutes, and I'm being kind with that word, these prostitutes will just work for their donors. And honestly, for the overwhelming majority of our politicians, the answer is super clear. The prostitutes work for money.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction because there's a lot of reasons to be against something like what we're seeing with AIPAC and everything. We are against what's happening to the people in Gaza. We are against the fact that we are putting billions of dollars into Israel when we could be using that money here at home. But then on top of that, it's the overall story that this really is about corruption within our US government, in Congress. It just seeps through all different levels of government. And the Great Awakening is that, right? They wanted to drain the swamp. This is actually what they're doing here.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.